Welcome back to the Fit Minute Podcast, where we talk all things health, fitness, and lifestyle. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Gabby Mazar, and on today's episode, I have Cory Sterling. He is a lawyer, small business owner, author of the Yoga Law Book, group fitness instructor, yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, and he operates the Conscious Counsel and online law firm. So, Cory, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Gabby. Thank you for having me and for reading that bio so perfectly.
It was a lot. But that's great. It's great that you have a lot. You know, you're doing a lot of things and you have a lot of passions, and I think that's wonderful. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? So who are you? What do you do? What is with all of these things that you do?
Nice to meet you. My name's Cory. So I'm a lawyer and I started a law firm working with health and wellness professionals, specifically yoga, Pilates, and health coaches. And I sort of got into that because I used to be a corporate lawyer wearing a suit and then was just finished and was a group fitness instructor and did a yoga training and then did a Pilates training, and just like finding different ways always to merge the different passions I have in my life together. So wellness, health, activity, community, and law. Somehow law ends up in there also as well. And yeah, and I built my online law firm 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, it wasn't so common for things to be online or for Zoom calls or whatever. But I was just like, hey, I'm just going to travel, and if it doesn't work, me doing it my way that I want to do it, then I'll just figure something else out. And thankfully, it works, and it still works, and I love what I do. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so finding that kind of passion and finding that roadmap that you have gone down, you've really like niched your practice to yoga professionals, Pilates professionals, fitness industry. How do you feel? How do you feel that works for you? Why did you want to go in that direction? What really led you there?
In my free time, I've always, like, in my free time, when I wasn't working a corporate job, I was either traveling or playing sports or going to a studio. Like, that's sort of really just what I did. Or I would go see live music. And I didn't, and I don't know if you want me to sing,
You can if you want.
but yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll just feel called to start singing. But basically the way that it works for me is I was very, very strict when I started my own small business, where I'm like, I'm only going to do things that actually light me up. And part of that included working with like-minded individuals. So for example, you and I have just met, but I already feel like we have a whole bunch in common, and there are, similar experiences we've had as small business owners or health and wellness professionals, even though in very different ways. And when I started my business, I was just like, I just want to work with awesome people who I connect with, because then it feels a lot less like work. And in the years that I worked as a lawyer in different industries, it always felt like work. So it's sort of like, how can I take what it is that I'm doing and make it not feel like the preconceived notions we have about work? And that's sort of how it functions for me, and how it inspires me, of just spending my time speaking with awesome people and supporting everyone who I work with. All of my clients are small business owners, building community, making the world a healthier place in their own, like from their own perspective, and being the difference they want to see in the world. So to me, that feels like a really useful way to spend my time.
Yeah, and even though you're practicing law, you're still promoting health and fitness and a healthy lifestyle. So you're really doing two things that you absolutely love. You're promoting growth in the fitness industry, you're helping fitness professionals to grow their industry, and you're helping them stay safe from getting sued.
Helping them keep their doors open, and also talking them off the ledge when there's a problem. So not all of the conversations that I have are always like, as a lawyer, obviously I get brought in to send cease and desist letters, and someone's getting audited for misclassification of workers, and all these sorts of different things pop up. But I think if you can take something serious and find a way to make it heart leading and be compassionate and make it fun, then yeah, then that's a positive contribution. And that's sort of where I see my very, very minuscule, tiny role in all of this.
Well, I think there's a misconception too that lawyers always deal with bad things. There's always, like forming an LLC or, writing up paperwork, a business, what is it called? Like, oh gosh, nope, totally gone. See, this is my brain today.
An operating agreement.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, there you
writing up an
go.
operating agreement. So you do documents too. So you can help business owners to guide their business and grow their business because an operating agreement is very important. I think a lot of small business owners do not have one. And that's dangerous, right?
Yeah, and I'm gonna follow off your wingtails here and just focus on the positive things.
Right.
So instead of going into the bad stories, like you're absolutely right. Like some of the coolest things for me is when a studio or a client approaches me and says like, "Hey, I'm ready to do things properly, and I'm super excited, and I want to have an amazing membership agreement." Or I'm hosting a retreat, and I want to make sure that all of my expectations for how people are going to behave and what their deposit means. I want to make sure all of that's like perfectly organized. So there is a lot of joy and love and positivity around it, and operating agreements as well. Like it's so cool because it's the birth of someone's idea, and it's so cool for me that whenever it comes to drafting an operating agreement, the first question I'll ask, like sort of like a minister overseeing a marriage, where you'd always talk about like, oh, where did you meet? For me, it's like when we start drafting the operating agreement, I'm like, oh, like when did you guys have the idea for this business that's now going to be a real tangible thing that people can interact with and benefit from? So there's a ton of positives, and if it was all doom and gloom, I would probably work in family law, or be in a different area, and instead I'm speaking with awesome studio owners and people who are healthy and making everyone else healthier.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot to be said too about what you do to help guide business owners because you don't have any clue. All the legal stuff it's not my expertise. My expertise is, well, that's not true. I do have a business degree, but my expertise is not law. So there are things that I did not know when starting a business. So you're going at things completely blind and trying to figure out how to start a business, what I need, what am I doing? And you're just kind of grasping at straws and hoping a lot of things work. But if you have someone that's telling you, okay, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this, this is how we do this. Here, I'll walk you through this. I'll help you write this up. You can take those ideas from that person and really put it into action and really make it happen and happen in a solid, tangible way that can help them to grow and become a real business. Like I said, there's so many business owners that I think just like, oh, well, you know, I can just open up a store and people will come, but that's not the reality of it. There's so many things behind the scenes that you have to do to really make a business run and work properly.
Yeah, amen. And I can also share just from my own experience that when I was never an entrepreneur, and then I became an entrepreneur when I was like, oh, why don't I just do my own thing? And like, to be honest, I'm 7 years in and I'm still figuring out aspects of how to be better at accounting, right? It's not like, oh, I want to start my own business and help people. And like, then there's a lot of complications because you have to organize everything appropriately and you have to speak to your accountant about this and that. But like, also, if I tried to do the accounting myself, it would be an absolute disaster. And it's sort of the same thing with law, where like the expectation of when I work with clients, the expectation is not like, oh, they're going to go get a law degree after I speak with them. It's more like, hey, let's take 15 minutes, figure out what it is that you need, and I'll take care of it for you so that you can teach classes or build a business or do marketing or do social media or do the things that you love doing. So it's sort of just like assembling a team, and law is one component of that. There's a lot of different pieces to it. But yeah, it's really important to work with professionals who understand the industry, understand you, and also can easily and conveniently get you what you need without you having to be too involved.
Yeah, and I can say I have done my own accounting and it is a disaster, which is why I have an accountant. And I think as a strong business owner, you have to also realize that delegating tasks to the correct people is important. So having a legal person on your side, an accountant on your side, maybe you have payroll, maybe you have, a separate bookkeeper, but you have all of these people in place because that's what helps your business thrive. I think that small business owners especially really try to do everything on their own, and you're wearing too many hats. You cannot wear all the hats. You cannot be the best at everything. So you want to focus on what you are best at. So if you are best at teaching, or if you are best at running the business, if you are best at selling, those are the things that you need to focus on and put other people in place to actually run those things, because that will take those things off your plate to focus on the things that you do best to make your business thrive.
That's exactly it. And I think as much as it also relates to external services like accounting, bookkeeping, lawyer, all of that stuff, everything you're saying applies so much internally as well, with the business that you run and what your studio looks like. And the ability to delegate and rely on a team, it just gives you freedom. It just like systems, processes, automizations, and team. That's the formula for freedom. And I want everyone to be free. And I'm very grateful that I get to, I've worked to implement it and create it in my business. And there's nothing more important or truer that you've said than just the importance of delegating the things that you're not great at, that you don't like doing, that someone else can easily do. Because another thing that I've also learned about being a small business owner is like, there are these things, there are these parts of your business that you loathe and drive you crazy. And we all have this like spotlight mentality where it's like, oh, because I hate this, everyone would hate this. And a big paradigm shift for me was like, okay, I hate this, but now I think, but there's someone out there who is dying for this project or dying to do this work. And then that just creates so many possibilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the reason we get into this industry to begin with, in the fitness industry, is because we're passionate about fitness and passionate about health. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate when they go into business, those things kind of fall away because you're too busy to do your part in staying healthy and staying fit on your own. So you start doing all the things, wearing all the hats, and just being too busy because you're trying to run this business. But if you delegate all those things out, especially the things you loathe, to someone that does love it, then you have the time to take care of yourself, which in turn comes back to you and your business, because now you're a happy business owner and not an unhappy business owner. So you're turning that around.
Being a happy business owner is the best type of business owner to be, also just for your clients, right? Absolutely. It's sort of like if you think about personal relationships that we're in, being a happy person makes you the best partner or spouse or mom or sister or daughter or whatever it is. So it's just an extension, right? The way you do one thing is the way that you do everything. This is just like, we're just talking about like the business version and the business elements involved, but it fits into the bigger picture of our lives.
Absolutely. So tell me, what are some of the easiest ways to get legally protected, and why should you?
Okay, well, you should, because there's a lot of liability and a lot of miscommunication going on out there. So I would say 30% of my job is fixing problems that easily could have been prevented, and 70% is setting my clients up to help them to have documents in place and have systems and processes so they don't have to worry when something comes up. The thing that you have to understand is when you operate a business, you have all of these different relationships. So you have a relationship with your clients, with your team. If you own the business with someone else, like another member of your LLC, there's a relationship with that. And I think the big issue is that the fitness and wellness industries as a whole, because a lot of the professionals are heart leading and have skill sets that are not chiefly entrepreneurial or that don't usually require previous entrepreneurial experience, they don't understand the implications of what legal relationships are because they're very invisible. So as an example, if we just talk about a waiver of liability. So waiver of liability is a document that you get someone to sign that says, okay, I'm participating in these activities with you. And if I get hurt and break my leg or suffer head trauma or get a concussion or whatever it is that happens, I agree not to hold you responsible. When you're not using that agreement and you can't appreciate the rules around liability, you don't understand that you have an invisible relationship that exists. So I'm a Pilates teacher. Someone comes into my studio to use the reformer. If something happens, automatically I'm going to be responsible for that person. At law, it's called a duty of care. So this is one example of an invisible relationship with all of these rules that exist, that for me as a lawyer, it's like I'm walking through the matrix, and in all these different relationships, like I see the green screen with all of the different things that need to be taken care of. So I think the number one reason why people need to be aware of this is because you do have legal obligations, and there are particular risks of things that you're doing that you don't appreciate or that you don't think about, because this is the truth. If I didn't go to law school and if I didn't work with over 1,100 clients in 6 years, I would never think about this either. Like it's not intuitive that you think, oh, I'm hiring someone. Are they a contractor or an employee? I'll just call them a contractor and I'll just pay them for 3 years as a contractor, and not realizing that the whole time you've been treating them as an employee, and then there's liability and risk associated with that. So as a first step, is that palatable?
Right. So have you ever worked with any clients that have been sued or that had any incidents that you have had to mitigate?
Yeah, I've never had to litigate, so I don't. Where I help clients is I draft agreements for them, we customize them, we make them specific to the particular rules that apply to them, as well as like the specifics of the industry. So the main documents that we'll set clients up with would be a studio membership agreement, a waiver of liability, a privacy policy, and a social media disclaimer, and an independent contractor or an employee agreement. So specific to the industries of health and wellness and where we work. Other things that we do would be like if you run a retreat, the activities on the retreat are going to be different. So I'll tell a retreat story in a second. But so retreat, it's a whole different relationship with all these different specifics. So you're accepting deposits and you're reserving at a retreat site. And what is the timeline of when you have to make those payments? And what if someone backs out? And what if someone wants to cancel? And then when you're on the retreat, what if someone's behaving inappropriately or making other people feel uncomfortable? What legal rights do you have to get them out? So what we do is we set them up with documents to communicate the expectations and relationships that they want to have, and then we support them if something happens. I've never been to court. I have one client that things went all the way. It was a yoga studio that was doing yoga silks. They were the only client, and they weren't using my waiver of liability. They were using another one, but that was the only one where things actually got to court. But other than that, everything else settles in a negotiation stage. And the important thing to know is that settlements will always be determined by how strong your legal documents are. So every problem that I've had to resolve, and like I've had clients running retreats where they had to kick people off, discrimination issues, people going on hikes and sliding down and falling and breaking their jaw and all this sort of terrible stuff. I've had clients get audits from independent contract for misclassifying workers. I've had people using equipment that breaks during class and having to use the waiver of liability. So everything that you can imagine I've been through. But the way the process really works is an issue comes up, they reach out to me, usually they're very emotionally charged, and I'm like, steady hand because I've been through it so many times. But the first question I'm always going to say to them is, please send me a copy of the signed legal agreement in relation to this relationship. And when they're using documents that we've drafted for them or that are specific to what they're doing and how they're doing, it's really easy. Like, hey, provision 8 said you would not sue us if participating on a hike and that the risks were falling down and possible bodily harm. Therefore, you have no claim against us if you continue to pursue this. We reserve the right to counterclaim, blah, 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 insert legal jargon, right? Whatever things that lawyers say. And that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is, oh, I copied my agreements from someone or I got them from a friend. And then same situation happens. I'm going to say the exact same thing. Hey, please send me a copy of the signed agreement. Worst case scenario, we don't have a signed agreement. Second worst case scenario, I have something, but it's really bad because my coach gave it to me, or my friend gave it to me, or someone else gave it to me. And then I can't respond with the same strength. So really, for us as health and wellness small business owners, the majority of the action takes place when we're responding to a claim, not really when it's not going to go to court, because usually it will settle there. But the pathway of the settlement will be determined largely on the strength of the legal documents.
Yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's scary when you don't have those in place, especially when something happens. I had a client that fell to her knees the other day, and of course I was, freaking out and, called her to make sure everything was okay, check up on her, and she said, this was my fault. I have bad balance and I whatever. And I said, if anything, please let me know. I'm here, and just made sure that everything was okay, and she was fine, and thankfully, no, not even hurt, just fell. She was on a mat and fell to her knees, and but it's very scary. It's very scary because, especially when you work with an elderly population, you really have to worry about those things. Do I want her to be safe? Absolutely. But do I want her to come back and say, this was my fault and now I'm taking you for everything you have? No, which I don't think. You have a relationship with these clients, and you build that relationship as well, and they do sign a waiver, hopefully. Well, they do in my business, but hopefully. But so you want to be able to build that relationship, to have that trust, to know, like, yes, I am here for you, whatever you need. We can take care of whatever, or help you find whatever you need. But you never want it to get to the point where someone is so upset or something happens and you don't have those things in place, because it can be detrimental. You can lose your business. You can lose a lot of things. And that's a scary thing. So that's the negative side. We talked about the positive. We do have to go a little negative, right?
Yeah, well, and it's also just being a realist. But in terms of what you mentioned, it's that, firstly, like, what comes to my mind right away is, like, when the client is saying, it's my fault, it's, I should have done this. It's always like, as a lawyer, you always want things in writing.
Yeah.
Or somehow to have some record, like, even if you emailed her instead of, and then if she writes you an email where she says, oh, hey, actually, it's totally all my fault, then it's like, okay, cool. Now I feel a lot better about things. But also that fine line gets crossed of, like, and a lot of teachers will say this, like, I have a personal relationship with all of my clients and nothing would ever happen. They would never do anything.
But you don't know. You don't know
it's
that.
not, it's firstly, it's true that you don't know. B, you don't want to leave it to them to decide how it's going to happen. But also, like, the change happens when someone has experienced an alteration in quality of living. So now they can't look at a screen, or they can't go to work, or they can't do this, or especially when they can't provide for their family. Like, okay, if I'm not able to support my family and put food on the table, I don't care that I was coming to your Pilates studio for 7 years.
Yes.
Like, now I need to make sure that I'm going to be okay. So what I want for all my clients is to be in control of the situation, and having specific legal documents is the pathway to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very true, and you don't know that either. And what, even something as minor as just, dropping down to your knees, maybe it could be detrimental to them. Maybe it could alter their daily life. You really don't know that. So, yes, you have to be protected, and it is very important to do so. But, so tell me a little bit about the yoga law book, what it is. Obviously, the yoga law book seems a little self-explanatory, but what is it, and why did you decide to write this book?
Yeah, the yoga law book. Why not, eh? Firstly, I've been dreaming of the Pilates law book a lot. So I think I want to just make a Pilates version of it. But essentially, it's when I started my legal practice, I noticed that everyone was making the same mistakes, and that I was having the exact same conversation every single day. And I was like, okay, there's probably a way to share this information in a better way. So I basically chronicled my first year of being a lawyer. In my first year, most of my clients were in the yoga industry. And I just, like, would write down different stories of things that I went through that highlighted the important legal issues at play for a yoga professional. So there's something about use of trademark and how to license out materials that you create. There's something about waivers of liability. There's something about independent contractors. And just the idea was to make it fun and easy and light, and that any wellness professional could pick the book up and be like, oh, like this situation makes perfect sense to me, and be able to demonstrate. Maybe I should write like a children's book to even, make it more, more sim.
Like a flip book.
Yeah, a flip book. It's like, oh, and then the bunny figured out about waivers of liability. But yeah, but that's it, and it was it meant a lot to me to put it out, and yeah, and it's sold hundreds of copies, so a lot of people have read it, and that's the story of the Yoga Law book.
How do you feel that you teaching, a fitness instructor, being a yoga and Pilates teacher, influences you in your business in law?
I think it gives me insight into what's really going on in the industry and what things are changing and what the trends are. So that's something that's really exciting for me. I think also the way that it helps me in law of working with all these professionals, like I said, is just like I feel like my clients are my friends, even though I just meet them, because in some ways we have so many things in common. Like when I have, especially with Pilates teachers, like I just want to talk to them about Pilates more than I want to talk about law, even though we have to talk about law. So I think that's it off the bat. And then otherwise, I don't think there's too much. It's just like I'm a lawyer who happens to work in these specific niches and in these particular industries because I'm passionate about them. But I think for myself as a teacher, I don't know. I don't know if being a lawyer, other than making sure everyone signs agreements, I don't know how much it plays in, except that really the coolest part about my job is that, and this was something that was so important to me when I started, was being able to make my personal life a business expense. So because all my clients are Pilates studios and yoga studios and retreats and teacher trainings, and I'm always speaking at different teacher trainings, like that's where I just travel around. I love going to different studios. I love visiting different gyms. I love trying different classes. And all of that's, a business expense, because usually I'm going to visit clients or check in with them or go to a new place and check it out. So that's like, if I'm being really honest, I think that's the big benefit of it for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it also makes you more relatable, because you are talking to the person that you are working with and knowing and being in the industry as well. You may not own a studio, but you work in the industry as well. So you're in it. You are in it with them. So when you're talking to somebody who owns a studio and who runs a business and who is in the thick of it, you really are relating to them. You're saying, yeah, I teach here, I do this. I know, I really understand what you're talking about, understand what you're going through. And it's that like-mindedness the ease of talking to these people, the ease of talking to these other business owners, because you can get them excited about something that they love and then go, oh, by the way, here's this, here's this business agreement, or, this is what we need to add to this, because they're excited about their business and they're excited about what you're talking about and what they love as well. So that, drawing people that are like-minded, that enjoy the same things, that understand what you're going through or talking about, makes it a little easier for you to put in the legal jargon and the stuff that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, it does help. And I think also one word that just springs to mind in hearing that is just passion and being passionate about it. And just as a very quick example, like I love yin yoga. I just did a yin yoga teacher training in Bali. But and I was at this expo over the weekend, and I met a studio owner who needs documents. And I was like, oh, what sort of classes do you have? And she was like, yin, blah, 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 yin yoga. And I was like, finished, done. I'm there. Like, let's chat afterwards. But I really, it's all very, the passion is very authentic and very real. So in that sense, it's a perfect marriage. And for sure, it helps that I can relate with people, with my clients on different levels. But I think it's not just even me relating with them, it's them relating with me, if that makes sense, right? Like it's very mutual in that sense where like we get each other. And you're right, I don't own a studio, but I've just spent so much time practicing, and I've seen so many studios in so many different countries in the world that, it's just super fun. It's like, it's my dream. So
Well, and getting to know the business owners as well, and knowing, and because you're in that niche, you know so many business owners and what so many of them have been through. So I think what's difficult when you're navigating this as an owner, as a business owner in the fitness industry, is that yes, you can write up a legal document for whatever, but you want somebody to know your business specifically. And, another lawyer might know business and might write up business agreements or operating agreements or, liability agreements, but they may not specifically be in your business or have even worked with other, fitness industries before and don't know the ins and outs or what might happen or anything because they've never done that before. So you kind of have an insight into all these different fitness industry owners and have seen all the things that could possibly happen. So it's a little bit different because you are working with them specifically and attending to their specific needs and understanding what they need. And I think that's difficult. I think it's really hard as a business owner to find somebody that knows your business inside and out and is in it and loves it and is passionate about it because, not all businesses are the same. They're all businesses, but they're not all the same. Yeah. So, that's my take on it. That's how I feel about it. And that's kind of how I have felt that, I've met with a lot of people in the many years that I've done this. And sometimes you just don't vibe with somebody because they're just not getting it. They're just not understanding you and your business and what your business needs. And they're just trying to be a generic person that doesn't know what your business might need or what you might need from that.
Yeah. You've got it. And yeah, so you're right that it's something that's really cool. It's also sort of freaky because I've been doing it for so long that I automatically already know. Like I already know before we get into the conversation what the legal issues are, what the pain points are. And another thing that's cool is like a lot of my clients as well are coaches for Pilates studios and coaches for yoga studios. So from their perspective and working with them, I also understand even more so what it's not like, oh, all of my clients are studios, so I understand what a studio goes through, but like, I have clients who are marketing coaches specifically for yoga studios or for Pilates studios. So when you understand like even such a, like to a different level, it's like the importance of an intro, a 2-week intro offer and what are the conversion rates and applying that information into a membership agreement is so important as well. So it all fits in. It's all one thing, and it's a whole lot of fun.
I agree. So if anybody wants to find your yoga law book or find out more information about you and your legal services, where could they find you?
The law firm is we're called Conscious Counsel. So you could just go to Google and put in Conscious Counsel. The website is consciouscounsel.ca. My name is Cory Sterling, Cory. If you throw Cory Sterling into Google, there'll be a whole lot of things. And then the yoga law book is sold on Amazon, so you can grab it there. And feel free, if anyone is listening, feel free to reach out and say hi and say what's up. And if you enjoyed this and share a funny story or anything that you feel like sharing. And Gabby, this was so cool. I really appreciate you having me. And you're an awesome wellness professional. And I know that you've done this for so many years and a great business owner. So it's awesome to be connected. And I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And I will have all of the links to find you, to find your book, and to contact you in the show notes as well. But do you have one last little tidbit or inspiring story or anything that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Oh my gosh, a tidbit or an inspiring story. You've really put me on the spot. The inspiring story I'll share. Right now I'm in Florida and I'm going to a local gym, and there is someone who I don't know the history, I don't know the story, but they have a prosthetic limb and they are just absolutely killing it and crushing it at the gym. And it's something small, and I've never spoken to this person, and now maybe I will, but that's something that just totally inspires me and drives me when you see, someone who maybe could have something that objectively is perceived as a challenge, and they use it to find a way to reach their potential and be the best version of themselves. That really lights me up. So that would be my little inspirational piece. So thank you to that person also.
Yeah, overcoming obstacles and saying that something like losing a limb doesn't stop you from being the best version of yourself.
Amen.
I love that. Well, Cory, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the inspiring stories, and hopefully people will get something out of this to not get into a bad situation or to help grow their business and be the best business or best teacher that they can ever possibly be. So I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening, and hopefully you got something out of this today. If you want to reach out to Cory or find his book, those will be in the show notes, so I'll have the links to that, and we will see you all next week.